Well, this has been an interesting few days for me. Last week, I was threatened with what is called a SLAPP, S-L-A-P-P, a strategic lawsuit against public participation for defamation. And that was done by Callum Wilde, acting for the Department of Health and Social Care, also 3 top civil servants. A SLAPP, for those of you who are not a lawyer or not knowing about this, is an abusive legal threat to prevent publication on matters of public importance. People this could affect can be academics, people doing research, whistleblowers, or anyone that's campaigning. In my case, you could call it investigative journalism. Also last week, the DHSC Minister, Mr. Hooper, personally disparaged me in a bizarre Twitter rage. He claimed I was not a journalist, just a bloke with a camera who posts videos on YouTube. And that was just some of them. There was many more quite hurtful comments made. And this happened shortly after I'd sent a comprehensive 11-page reply to Callum Wilde's legal action on Thursday. So later on, Mr. Hooper deleted all of those disparaging tweets. But let's be clear, my reply to Callum Wilde has been prepared with the help of my legal friends, and I robustly told them where they could go with their SLAPP defamation claim. And let's just say, as far as the time of recording, I have not heard from Callum Wilde since. The SLAPP claim did not include any suggestion that I defamed the DHSC, but it appears that the DHSC is funding this, and also for the other Callum Wilde clients, 3 top civil servants who claim I have defamed them. Now, this is almost like something you expect to hear coming out of Russia. Let's think about it. State funding, state enforcement of the private civil rights of the civil servants on defamation. So to force me to back off a story I already have proof is substantially true. Sub judice has also been used a lot in recent times to prevent public discourse on any issues which are in legal disputes. Fair enough. But anyway, it now seems that sub judice rules might only apply in the Alf Cannon government if you don't agree with him and let's say you're on the other side. For instance, on Monday, the Chief Minister of the Isle of Man, Mr. Cannon, wrote to all Tynwald members stating categorically that I defamed 3 senior civil servants and saying, in his words, that I'm conducting my own COVID inquiry, acting as judge, jury and executioner when it comes to senior civil servants. He also went on to say, for the purpose of clarity, that the SLAPP was an officer decision taken under delegated powers. It was not a political decision to send this letter. However, it carries with it his support, and any future actions regarding this particular matter is likely to have his sign-off. Again, got to ask, are we in Russia or some other dodgy state that you can think of on such an issue like this? Mr. Cannon's letter to Tynwald members came after another party also approached me, trying to persuade me to drop this story on a voluntary basis. And by the way, I should restate here that Mr. Cannon did circulate his letter to all Tynwald members to ensure that a copy, I presume, was going to reach me. Anyway, this letter basically seems to contain some sort of hush-up deal, saying if I pull the story, he will call off his attack dogs. Mr. Cannon wrote, however, I have now spoken to all the concerned parties. Providing Mr. Moulton does not seek to repeat these allegations, I expect there is unlikely to be any further action. So, the threat is, if I don't pull back my inquiries, the full force of the government chequebook would be available to attack me, and on top of that, with the Chief Minister's sign-off. I think Mr. Cannon should be explaining in public now why is he so desperate to pull the story, for me to pull that story. Claiming I have defamed 3 top civil servants surely is just a smokescreen. If it was really about defamation, well, they already have Callan Wilde instructed to enforce any legal remedies against me. And that would run its course through the courts of the Isle of Man. So why does Mr. Cannon think he can just speak with his staffers and then simply call it quits on the defamation claim if I simply back down on the story? After all, it seems from his letter he never spoke with DHSE Minister like that to settle the ransom litigation. So, despite Twitter and the forums speculating about what had happened to me, and there's been quite a lot of speculation, I have to say I'm disappointed also. There's been pretty well no interest, very little interest certainly, from the Isle of Man media outlets. This is about the freedom of the press. So you think surely the news of this slap must be worth a few column inches and airtime. I mean, Casey Brenner's new news on her website about answering FOIs normally, and the message about the cease and desist to government published on Friday did get a little bit of selective coverage, but it didn't get as much as I think it deserved. And should we not have expected a government statement distancing itself from Mr. Hooper's disparagement of me? Assurances also that the FOIs would be complied with and in accordance with the law. No, Alf Cannon waded in to try and knock me down even further. No one was speaking up. What does this say about the state of the press here in the Isle of Man, when there was just one sort of minor comment really given to Kate Brenner's plea about answering FOIs, and I did an interview with Manx Radio, and that took place about events almost a week earlier. That's it. The silence has been almost deafening, as if no one is being told or was interested in what's happening to me, which is essentially about the freedom of the Manx press. I can't state that enough. And I have to say I felt quite alone on this whole thing and in quite a dark place for a time. Anyway, with such a toxic atmosphere in government, it's probably no surprise that potential witnesses are feeling intimidated and maybe reluctant to give evidence to the Brunner COVID review. If this happens, her £1.4 million review, the whole thing actually might collapse. Her last update told government not to use her as an excuse to ignore answering the FOIs, and also raised concerns about government cease and desist letters. Cease and desist is just another way about refraining the slap threat which is over me at the moment. I acknowledge that me publishing an investigative story about the events between the 13th and the 16th of March 2020 might deter those with something to hide from giving evidence to the review in fear of self-incrimination. That is why we now need a proper public inquiry into this COVID situation. That would give it full legal powers to get to the full story and gather all the evidence. To some, they see maybe the Kate Brenner review as a government-sponsored event. Top civil servant, Mr. Coldrick Randall, for instance, there. Now, he's one of the slappers, and sadly to say that Paul Moulton, with whom Alf Cannon consulted before advising the DHSC to proceed with the ill-thought-out second ransom appeal in September 2022. So, Mr. Hooper is now back running DHSC, where he was in charge when DHSC defended the ransom claim with gross misconduct to warrant the tribunal awarding aggravated and exemplary damages. Miss Brunner has no powers to compel the production of evidence or testimony. So, to some it may be a fantasy to think for a moment that the top civil servants in the Manx government will suddenly change their tune and provide all the incriminating evidence of what happened at the outset. We also need to look maybe at Abbotswood and the second lockdown that happened in New Year 2021. We'll do that another time. But let's be clear, and be as clear as I possibly can. Coldrick Randall, Dan Davis, Mark Lewin, if you still claim I've defamed you, well, instruct Callan Wilde to send me a full answer to my reply last Thursday. Any resolution to the litigation will need your departments to answer the FOIs first. Only then Can you prove that the story is not substantially true and defamatory to you? Finally, it's a big thank you to you for watching this, to those who have come up to me in the street and offered support, and anything you can do has been fantastic. You know who you are, and again, thank you to my legal helpers on this, and everyone that's following me and messaging me on Twitter, and my YouTube subscriptions keep going up. Your encouragement will make me go on. We've got to fight for the freedom of the Manx press. Thanks for watching.